What is going on, guys? Thank you, as always, for tuning into the Search Engineers podcast. On this episode, we have an extremely special guest, Rob Fraser of Endur Apparel. You can check out the links to his LinkedIn, Instagram, and his website in the description. This is an extremely special episode. $10 million company. He did that in just 5 short years. He is the owner and CEO of Endur Apparel. Endur Apparel is an extremely awesome athleisure brand. We talk about his fulfillment methods, his manufacturing. We talk about some systems he has in place, some advertising strategies, the story of how he got started, and just everything. It was really awesome to have him on. There's tons of great gems and nuggets from this episode. Truly going to be one of my favorites. And enjoy the episode, guys. If you get value from it, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, share with a friend, and enjoy. Everybody, thank you for tuning into the Search Engineers podcast. Today, we are joined by Rob Fraser. Fraser is the CEO, owner of Endur Apparel. Rob, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Hey, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
I really appreciate it, man. So tell us a little bit about your company. If, some people are going to be listening to this that know about you. Some people are going to be listening to this, they don't know about you. To somebody that's listening that does not know who you are and what your company is, what would you tell them?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, I started the brand Endur. First and foremost, wanted to develop a brand that spoke to kind of the everyday active individual, highlighting the journey that athletics brings on and the perseverance that's involved with being an athlete or being an active individual that, kind of disassociating sport and performance from necessarily just winning, but also just getting out and getting active for both mental health reasons as well as just physical health reasons. Beyond that, we started to develop apparel around that, socks, performance socks being kind of where we found ourselves going deep. We found performance socks to be this, overlooked athletic apparel item where it's like they're very sport specific at the time. So it's like, oh, you're a runner, here's your running socks. Or you a cyclist, here's your cycling socks. So I was like, well, this seems kind of disjointed with the athleisure movement where my gear should move with me throughout the day. Why do I want to pack 3 pairs of socks to go from work to the gym to an event after, right? Short of them being smelly, like I understand that, maybe you want to change, but from all intents and purposes, like for the functionality and versatility aspect, like it should be able to transcend the day with you as an active individual. Especially as our days get busier, we're on the go, we want to pack less things. So I was like, okay, what is, like, for lack of a better term, what's the yoga pant of the foot look like? How do we develop a sock that can be with you throughout the entire day, perform, but also look good? So we decided to kind of combine what was traditionally more like fashion stylish socks, so like really bold designs, colors, graphics, and put that onto a highly technical performance base of a sock that was going to be designed to not fall down, be supportive through the arch of the foot, not have any seams to prevent blisters, wick moisture away, breathe, all these great benefits, and then package that up into like an all-day performance sock. And so kind of like within the first year, we kind of developed that product and then started building kind of brand and community around that. In current day, we're sold direct to consumer primarily throughout North America. Up to this point, we've bootstrapped the brand from like initial $1,000 investment to well over $10 million in sales now. So
wow,
we've grown quite drastically in the last year as well. We've gone from a team of 4 to a team of 18 and growing. So there's a lot in there to unpack, but that's just the general. To bring it all together, we're a performance apparel brand that with a mission to kind of increase the world's capacity to endure, and so there's a lot that we can dig into there, but performance apparel designed to inspire.
Sweet, man. Well, let's dive into it. So $10 million in sales or more, and you guys are 5 years in.
Yeah. And
now you guys deal directly to consumer. Do you guys have any like authorized retailer agreements with other retailers, or it's only through your own funnel?
Primarily, I'd say about 98% of all our sales are through our own channels, and that's direct online e-commerce. We do also white label business on the side as well. We're manufacturing socks for either in partnership or unbranded for other brands. That's also all done direct to consumer and drop shipped from our factory to them. So no kind of distributors or third parties there as well. So that's still managed by us. And then we have select curated wholesale accounts that we're trying to meet our customers where they are. This could be the favorite coffee shop that cyclists in Quebec go to, for example. So we're not like in Sport Check or, all these big box retailers. We want to really be able to kind of control the messaging and quality of the product, and also not shift our designing and buying cycles into satisfy the needs of these big box retail buyers, where we want to design in real time for what our community is telling us they want, and being able to bring that to life within a matter of weeks or months, rather than trying to guess a year out what people are going to like. So yeah, primarily all our sales direct to consumer, and yeah, over 90% for sure.
That's sweet, man. Yeah. So that's good branding strategy, right? You don't want to just kind of have it in Target here, there, Dick's, everywhere, right? Or maybe you do, but like you're kind of trying to keep it a little bit more niche specific. You're trying to tailor to your specific audience, maintain that brand. What would you call that? That like trust, that integrity.
So like just maintaining the messaging, and like ultimately what we're trying to get across. We're a mission driven company, and to your point, that may be the goal of a business, to go and get wide distribution through these channels. And maybe you are a more like CPG sort of business where like you're selling razors and like volume is the game, right? But you could also go D2C and go subscription. So like there's no perfect way. For us, we decided, hey, as a mission driven company with, a specific message we want to get across to our consumer, a certain story we want to tell, and given the product we're selling, when we decided like, hey, performance socks can be the primary product, you can't try them on in store anyways due to health concerns. They're a really great product to ship. They're small, light, they don't take up a lot of space, easy to warehouse. So a lot of other considerations that went like, hey, this is like a pretty natural direct to consumer e-commerce play versus wholesale traditional. So we'll go first channel D2C and then figure out the rest after that.
Sweet, man. Super cool. So now a majority of your sales are from your e-commerce. You guys are an e-commerce native company, right? You guys were from the jump, you guys were e-commerce specific?
Yeah, I'd say like, I kind of like tweeted about this yesterday. It's like, because there's the concept of like, we sell e-commerce, but are we actually an e-commerce company? Because I think today, like I would define e-commerce company as someone that like spins up the idea, and their goal is to kind of create funnels and sell as many products as possible and then shift as the market shifts. And like, that's totally fine. When I look at what we're doing, I would consider us more of a brand and just like a company first and foremost. And the channel in which we sell through is e-commerce, because we are focused on building something much larger. And like, we're not going to shift as the market. We're not going to try and use spin wheels to capture emails and like do all this other stuff that like if I was doing a strict e-commerce play, which like no shade. Yeah, just like no shade. Right. That's just, we're like, when we look at ourselves, it's like we're building the next Lululemon, right? We're not like an e-commerce brand that's just trying to sell like some AliExpress dropship stuff, or even if we've made a cool product and we just want to like sell as many until the flame's gone. It's like, no, we're continually actually pushing our category forward through innovation, hiring people, building out our team, building distribution, like I said, diversifying the business through different streams, going into wholesale. So I'd say like first and foremost, we're just like an international brand that sells through e-commerce as a primary first channel.
Yeah, no, very cool, man. And yeah, so like a quality brand, right? Like Bezos is Amazon is an e-commerce brand, but it's online, sure. But like what's happening on the back end, there's so many other systems and fulfillment method. Like it's so much deeper than just an e-commerce brand. So when you think of, to your point, like when you think of an e-commerce store, you think of spin the wheel, you think of exit intent pop-ups, you think of like a fake live chat person.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like all the tips, tricks, and hacks, and like, sure, those have a time and place even for like the bigger brands, but it's not our primary focus. Like our first focus is always like innovating around our product, building our community, building our brand. We've done that methodically over 5 years. So like, yeah, we're an e-commerce native company, but like I don't consider us an e-commerce brand, if that makes sense. Like it's like a weird distinction, but like I think you get it, as like you've just said it back to me. You understand, and people that are in the business would get it as well. It's like, we're not an e-commerce company, we just sell e-commerce. It's like an important distinction.
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference. Focusing on bringing as much value as you possibly can to customers. There's so much that's not happening on your website.
Exactly.
To make that possible, right? There's fulfillment, there's manufacturing, what's going on. I mean, that's a whole different thing in and of itself. Is that e-commerce at this point, right? Like there's a whole lot that goes into the quality systems, right? Now, when you started Endur, what was like the genesis of that? What really inspired that? And what other experience did you have before Endur? Were you doing drop shipping before then? Were you like messing around on Alibaba and AliExpress before you got started, or how'd that start?
No, so in like what I call my past life, I was actually a professional athlete. So I was a downhill mountain bike racer on the Canadian national team. traveled the world a few times over, 5 times at world championships for our country. And that kind of like all came to an end. It's a young guy's sport. And I was only like 23, 24 when I decided to stop racing, still ranked second in the country that season. I was like kind of ready for the next challenge. Although that was like a big goal and dream. It's like, I just looked, a few years in the future. It's like, this isn't going to provide the economic stability I need when the career is over.
Okay.
Which is a hard decision to make because I was still physically able to do it and like competitive, but had to kind of like make the hard decision. Like, hey, I am young enough to kind of like transition these skills into a new domain and see if we can make it happen. So that was kind of like the genesis for what taught me how to build personal brand, taught me how to develop partnerships, negotiating my own like sponsorship contracts, taught me importance around logistics. I had to travel around the world by myself for the most part. So I learned a lot of these like real world lessons around like personal operations, personal branding, marketing, personal finance. Like, how do I do these deals and make sure my money from sponsors lasts all year,
Right.
And then, so like when starting a business, I was like, honestly, I had no business experience. I didn't go to business school. To me, starting a business was just like a new sport. I was like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to learn as much as I can. And what I want to do is take what I learned in sport and what I felt was missing in sport and develop a brand for the athlete that talked about perseverance in the journey. Because as an athlete, like winning is like 0.001% of the time. And like everyone sees those highlight reels of like, oh, he's on the podium. This is amazing. But like the majority of it's like really, really hard work, similar to entrepreneurship. It's like, it's not a sexy business. It's like, it's tough. It's very stressful. It's very difficult.
It can be lonely. Yeah,
it's extremely lonely. So, so that was kind of like, that was it. And then I just basically started figuring out how to make it happen. I like figured out how to build a Shopify store, figured out how to source manufacturers overseas, figured out how to market it, develop a brand ambassador network, and really just started. I can't stress that enough, that a lot of people want to like, they want to just continually make business plans or pitch decks and get other people on board and talk about what they're going to do and just never do it. It's like, I had the idea end of August 2016, like August 31st. I had the business registered an Instagram page and a Shopify store by like September 4th. So like I was going. The first thing I did is like, I had the brand, I had the idea. I just like went down to the local store, got some custom hats made from lids, and started hustling those around to my friends. It's like, you're buying this. Like, I'm a businessman now. And then I like sourced some lanyards from China. Like, I can't stress enough how like today it sounds and like 10 million and a cool brand and whatever is like that. But like in the early days, it was me just being like a total moron for the most part, just like figuring it out and like going through, not knowing what I didn't know, making lots of mistakes, but like continually just like literally following our brand's mission to like continue moving forward without giving up. I was like, whatever, like, what's the worst that could happen? I'm going to learn something really cool. I was like, so I just kind of like went all in on it, and it started to like, and then in like anything in life, like you then apply hindsight to then inform the future. So like, that's the importance of getting started, is that like, it starts to teach you what you didn't know. Then you start to learn those lessons, apply those kind of new filters to how you're going to approach the future. And then you just get better and you can make more informed decisions. Your gut tells you the right thing, wrong thing most times. So that's the importance of getting started, is that like, you can only really learn most of the important lessons by doing it. You can't read about it.
Yeah, no, you can't. Like you like, there's only so many variables that you can read about in a book to prepare yourself, right? But there's way more variables in actual experience that are going to come at you that you just can't learn until you take action.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was like Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson. It's like everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And like entrepreneurship is getting punched in the face. It's like the business plan, great. Your financial model, great. Like, it's going to change within the first week that you start your business, most likely, because like, you just don't know what you don't know. So you're better off getting started and then building like iterative plans, kind of like really loose plans to figure out where you want to go. It's like, it's kind of like if you're going to go like hacking through the Amazon, there's going to be no map, right? You're going to have to figure it out as you go. And like, you build the map as you go. So it's just, that's why I just can't stress enough that people like who have an idea, it's like, just get started.
Yeah. If you're an entrepreneur or creative, or you have an idea like that, you really do have to blaze your own trail, which means you're going to have to make mistakes. So it's like a real testament to, you got to be willing to lose.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
and okay with it.
You got to be okay with it, right? You got to be willing to learn from it. Right. Now, tell me about your experience with losing. Like when you started, right? Were you in it in the hole for a little while, or did you had to bounce back? Like what? I'm sure there were tons of ups and downs that went into the success. Like you didn't just, like you said, the highlight reel, you didn't come to this point overnight. That 5 years, there was probably some long moments there. Like, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, like the number one that comes to mind is I started the business with a friend in college, and because like I didn't know what I didn't know, and the idea was just like we're doing this for fun. As things started to get real and pick up in pace, it became apparent that we weren't aligned on the goals of where we want to take this business. We weren't aligned on what it meant to work hard. We weren't aligned on the commitment that business does take. And that just slowly but surely over like a year and a half created a further and further divide. This individual didn't necessarily keep up with the learning curve the business demanded, because it just grows exponentially, and then you have to be reading to kind of make sense of what's going on. You have to be seeking out mentors. Like there's no, like we talked about, there's no roadmap here, but there are people that have done it. There's great books. So like the more you can consume that, apply it to your real life experience, then make a kind of informed decision moving forward. Like that's what you have to be doing continually, like in your spare time. And so that wasn't being done outside of the work. And so like it just became more and more clear that this wasn't working. And then he eventually ended up exiting the business. And there's a larger, broader story we probably don't have time to get into today. But the lesson there was, it's really important in the early days to like have the difficult discussions. And if you're going to bring in a business partner or any kind of partner for that sense, making sure you're aligned on some of the more important, like why are you getting into business? Like, why are you doing this? What's important? It's much more than like, I like this person, or they're fun to hang out with, because that's probably the quickest way to lose a friendship, right? Like, and unfortunately, like we're, amicable, but not friends these days. You know what I mean? Like, we've lost touch. And so that sucks, because we were really good friends before. So like, would have been better off not starting it together, probably. But at the same time, would we be here if we didn't? Who knows, right? So like hindsight's great, but like I'd say like that was a part where like that was kind of like a big learning experience, and like obviously a huge loss, because like now you've got to kind of have a co-founder exit, which honestly sinks a lot of businesses more than it's. I think the number one cause of startup death is co-founder dispute. So that was tough to navigate, because now you got to replace that individual, and there's obviously money involved with buyouts and stuff like that. And so like that stuff gets complicated. So it's just a big learning experience of not having the right legal paperwork in place, not thinking through the ramifications of if this does work out. I like when people start businesses, they might ask themselves like, like they'll think the odds that this working out are quite low, but you should actually ask yourself, like, what if this works out? Like what if it goes right? A lot of people think like, what if it goes wrong? No, what if it goes right? Like, are you ready for it to actually work? Because like, are you going to pay your taxes, or are you going to end up in jail? It's like what if it goes really right? Did you talk to an accountant? Like there's levels to this game, right? You can get yourself in a lot of trouble if you're not actually thinking through the ramifications of like all the actions you're taking. So, and then beyond that, like literally like on a smaller scale, like I make mistakes every day and like have to learn from them, whether, and like now managing a team, I've got, 18 people that work here and more that rely on this to provide income. So like you feel that pressure. It's like the mistakes you make, although you're becoming more wise and smarter and hoping you don't make them, but like a fatal blow could be like not just affecting you now, it's affecting the families of multiple other people, right? So you like that weighs heavy. And but the overlying thing is that like generally speaking, most mistakes in business are like not death blows, and it's just your ability to not make, like our philosophy here at Endur is like, we're okay making mistakes because we're going to learn. We're not okay making them twice, because then we're not learning, and then like we're literally just failing at that point. Like we never see a mistake as a failure. It's a learning opportunity. If it happens twice, it's a failure. We failed to learn, and that's really the only failure. If you're failing to learn and improve, like that's true failure in my eyes. Making mistakes is never failure, because like literally that's like the best way to learn. We always say also that like when you're winning or like we're doing really well, it's easy to think it's because we're geniuses. But then the reality is, is like if you're having a slower month or you're not winning, although you're still doing all the right things, like it's not because you're an idiot. There's just ups and downs in businesses. There's market conditions. So like we try to stay level-headed. We try to remember that like when we are doing really well, it's because of our hard work. And yeah, like we're approaching what we do smart, but like it's not because we're geniuses. It's because we're like learning from our mistakes, willing to make mistakes, and just working hard.
Right. You're taking action, you're disciplined, you guys are learning, growing, moving forward. And with that comes success as a byproduct, but you don't want to get your ego wrapped up in it, right? Because that's when the up and down emotional regulation goes out the window. And
yeah, and like if your ego gets involved, then you likely take your foot off the gas because you're on cruise control now, thinking you can't lose, right? And then ultimately, you know, you're gonna run into a tree. So it's like it's just never good to think that it's because you're a genius or because it's luck. It's like, you know, it's just compound hard work, and you know, it's like, and also if you are doing it from a place of authenticity and you enjoy what you're doing, how do you lose, right? How, like, you're hard to compete with. You're playing a different game at that point. You're not playing to go try to beat other people. You're playing because you want to just get better at what you're doing. And if you kind of harness that mindset and always make decisions for like that are best for the business, best for the people in the business, then like, yeah, you can still fail, but like it becomes much harder to fail. Like, it's as long as your incentives are aligned with like the ultimate goal, you're mission driven, like it's much harder to fail than if you're just like chasing money or chasing like that feeling of like, look at me, I'm on a podcast. It's like that's cool.
right.
Like I'm here to literally like share my story, and if people can learn a thing, that's cool. But like the second this is over, I'm back to work. You know what I mean? This is like this is cool and I enjoy it, and like, but in the end of the day, it's like I remember that like I still like don't know what I don't know as well. I learn every day, and when I get to speak like this, it's also I learn things. I'm like, oh, that's what I mean, or that's what I was thinking, and so it's also like beneficial to kind of share as well. But I think it's important to, yeah, I mean, reduce ego when possible, like harness it when beneficial, because like it's hard to be in this game if you're not like very confident or betting on yourself. You can't be like, you can't be the opposite. So, but you have to know when it's hurting you and not helping you.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about like the difference between being engaged in what you're doing on an authentic level versus just chasing money is how you put it. Right. Like now tell me about that. Like I know for myself, any endeavor I've ever been in, if I like really didn't believe in it, it was going to be extremely short-lived. Like it was just going to be short-lived. It was going to be hard. You know, I'm not going to be engaged in it. Like, you know, like tell me about your level of engagement with your brand. Like you're on a level where like you believe in this thing, man. You're so engaged in it, right? Like,
yeah, it's my life for the most part. Like I said, it's like I call it the sport of business. Like I wake up every day excited to kind of like, what can we do? Like, how can we build it? Like, how do we get creative and unique? I think like if you're like the best business to get into is like scratching your own itch. Like if you're uniquely qualified to do it in a way because it's a problem that you face and you're just so like interested in solving it. I feel like when I have the least energy here is when we're not thinking of things like really interesting to do, or we're like kind of just continue to doing the same thing. So, and people always ask like, oh, like, well, entrepreneurship's like 24/7. Even if you're not physically working, you're thinking about it, dreaming about it. A lot of people are like, how do you not get burned out? And I think like only burnout happens when you're continually doing something you don't want to do. And so like I get actually energy from this. I get more burned out from being forced to take a vacation, or like having to like go away, or the weekend comes and it's like, oh, I have to wait till Monday to kind of like get everyone back and do this thing that I'm excited about. Like that is harder for me mentally, although important. And I'm like remembering that you do need to kind of do other things with your life. But I think I love what we do so much that like burnout's not a result of like the hours put in. It's the result of working against yourself and like working against what you feel you should be doing. And that's why a lot of people like in their regular jobs are burned out. Yeah, you're only working 40 hours a week, and it's not like a small percentage of your actual hours in a week, but you're burned out because you spend that time doing something that's so against what you'd rather be doing.
Yeah.
Whereas the opposite is like, I get so much energy from it, and it's just like, and even the hard times, because then it prevents like a unique problem to get creative and challenge yourself and learn. So it's really rewarding. And to like loop around to my long-winded answer to your point, it's like if you're doing it for something that's inauthentic, for money, it's just too hard.
Yeah.
Business is too hard. Sport is too hard.
It's so true.
To reach the top if like money is the only result. Like it's like
so true.
You can get money other ways. You can go like if that's your goal, like go do something else that's not as hard.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, no, you're gonna burn out quick. Like to make money, you really do. Like if you're really trying to make money, your goal is to chase money. to really do that at a higher level is no small feat, right? Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like you need to be exceptional. And the best way to truly be exceptional at something is to find the thing that you really enjoy. Like you said, like really scratch your itch, pursue that, because it's going to be easier for you to be exceptional. There's still going to be challenges. That's not at all like wiping away the work. Like, and I'm sure there's things you have to do that does take work, right? Like maybe there's parts of what you do that you value more than others, right? Yep. But regardless, overall, you're able to like bigger picture. I'm so engaged in this. I love this thing so much. This thing is my baby. I will do whatever I need to do to make sure this thing survives, thrives, and grows. So like, if that means I got to like, scrub a little bit, or if I need to just power through this week, this is a tough week. We got meetings. I got to talk to this guy from corporate that I'm not crazy about, you know what I mean? But he's helping us, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah. How much of what you do, do you feel like how much of it do you feel like you do power through those moments of, okay, this part of my job isn't my favorite thing? Or is it just like, you're just all in on every ounce of it?
Oh yeah. I think it'd be like silly to say I love every part of what I do, but like at the same time, like you just recognize that's the cost of doing business. Like you just have to do those things. I would say like at a certain point though, you can start to kind of delegate and hire those things away.
Sure.
Because like at a certain point in the business, like your time is best spent in things that like you actually can move the needle and that give you energy. Like me getting dragged down on an HR issue or something that like, in the past I would have handled. It's like, A, I'm not the best person anymore because like I'm not a professional. And then B, like if it's like, again, like if someone else can do a better job and it frees up time for me to do what I'm really good at, then like everyone wins. It's just a shift in mindset of like, okay, there's an upfront investment cost of getting more people in to do these different tasks, but over time the costs net out if you like get the right people. So that's kind of like a shift I've been trying to force myself to do, to like bring on more members. It's like, although like, it suppresses earnings in the short term, in the long term, it allows you to move quicker. And then those things like slingshot back. So remember that these, shifting the mindset of like human capital and like systems and automation, they're investments in the future. Although they look like expenses in the current day.
Right. Yeah, no, reinvesting into your brand, right? Like, sure, maybe it takes you a second or two to make that back, but I mean, in the long term, you're going to win. So now at what point in your business was you talked about the shift with your co-founder at the time? I guess we're coming at the time. Do you have to leave in a second? Okay, we'll wrap up now.
We got like 5-10 more minutes.
Okay, cool. So you talked about the falling out with your co-founder, right? And now at what point, I think I saw on your socials that was about year 2 in your business. Is that right? So you just passed $1 million in sales at that point.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. We did like $1 million in total sales over the 2 years, $1 million, about $350K the first year. So it's, I remember like real quick, a funny story is like we started the business and I met with an accountant and he's like, if you make over 30 grand over 4 consecutive quarters, you're going to have to remit GST. I'm like, dude, there's no chance in hell we're making 30 grand. I'm selling like a couple pairs of socks, buddy. Like, slow down. And we ended up doing 350K that year. So like 10X in some. So like that was the first lesson in like, I'm not thinking big enough. Right. And then the second year, we doubled again and did like closer to 800K. So yeah, like over $1 million in total sales when my co-founder exited. And yeah, that was kind of like the turning point. That was really like where I had to come up with a 6-figure amount of money to buy out my co-founder, a personal loan. Like this is like, okay, I'm actually really betting on myself now. And that was kind of like the inflection point where like Endur has to work. So like, and I was already all in, but I was like, now I've got like some real skin in the game, it's time to hit the gas, hire the right people, learn even faster and more and that was March of 2019. And so from March 2019 to now, that's where the other 9 millions come in. So like you can see that it's been quite a 3 years of like fairly significant growth in terms of like our revenues. And that's just been a function of hiring the right people, positioning ourselves well, and just working like really hard.
And it's, what's interesting too, is like, I look at the timeline of when all these challenges started to happen around year 2. Right. So it's like, on the outside, it looks like, if you have that short view perception of, oh, all these challenges, now I'm in debt because I had to get a loan to buy out these people. You can look at all the problems, but I see a straight shot up since all those problems happened, right? Like all those problems, like you grew exponentially from all of those challenges. Would you say it's true?
Yeah, and it was like a great learning experience. It's a great story, and I saw that future. That's why I took the bet on myself. Like,
Yeah.
and you as an entrepreneur need to see the future. It's very hard to articulate. Like, I also see where we're going to be in 5 years from now. If you told me to like show you the roadmap, I can't. I just like I
Right.
see the destination, but the map's not yet defined.
Mm.
And I know we'll get there. Like I knew we'd get here. So like that's an important thing is just like really be able to like see the future and think really big. And then question again, like, are you thinking even big enough? You know, should you think a little bit bigger? Because
Mm.
you'll find over time too, you set these goals that you think are big and you start hitting them. You're like, you shouldn't hit these goals, man. Like your goal should be way bigger than you're hitting.
Right.
Like you shouldn't be just like smashing every goal. Then you're basically just creating a budget, like a very moderate or modest budget. You know, it's like
Mm.
you need to set some stretch goals and like really go for it, and like force yourself to almost lose and then be like get hungrier and hungrier.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's just like it's I think adversity like create or like inspires creativity. You know what I mean? So like we just had to like figure it out once the buyout happened. It's like, okay, well, I need to make this 150K back as soon as possible because I need to pay it back.
Mm.
How are we gonna do that? And yeah, we made it back that year, luckily.
Oh, it's so cool, man. That really is inspiring too. I mean, anybody listening that's going through a tough time, man, take that as an opportunity to grow. There is a, you know, it's a Napoleon, a book, a Napoleon Hill book, right? A capture, like a line from, I think and Grow Rich or something like that. He talked about every setback brings with it the equal amount in like experience, lessons, and like the seed of an equal. You follow what I'm saying? I'm trying to articulate.
Yeah. Like every and the other way of saying it is like every setback like presents an opportunity for a comeback, right?
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
like, and so like I fully like it's yin and yang. It's like, yeah, you have like this shitty experience, but then you're given all these new tools and understanding. So you're kind of like net zero, although you feel like you're behind.
Yeah.
But then you can use that as a springboard to get ahead. So it's almost like, you know, like in this case, it's almost like one step back, two steps forward. And so if you can continue that mindset and not just give up after the one step back, it's like you're going to end up ahead over time.
Yeah. And you know, if you feel like, you know, if it's really not for you, maybe that's when you give up. Like you're just not an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You're not built for it. But if you are, you're going to be better.
Yeah. And that's an important point too, is like, maybe that 150K wasn't a good bet. I had to do all the analysis internally and like really say like, is this the right thing to do? And like, I believed it in my bones and it worked out. But like for some people, it might be like, this just isn't working, you know,
Yeah.
and that's okay too. Like go do something else. Like it's not a failure, it's a learning opportunity. And then maybe you're not uniquely positioned for that business and you take that learning, apply it to a new one, and now you're successful. So it's like, there's no, just like the failure to try is the main failure. You know?
Fear of failure holds back more success than actual failure ever did.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're
That's
like, and that fear of failure is ridiculous too, because you're fearing something that doesn't exist. Like it hasn't happened yet. It's like you're almost willing it into be like, and by being stressed about a possible future outcome, like you've actually now manifested it because you failed to try. So you did actually fail.
Right. So you brought it into your experience out of just too much thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like, because now you're not taking action, and so you're repeating actions that aren't working, right? And you're not doing things that do work. The things that were working, you stop doing, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah,
it's just
a
not
bad
working.
cycle. That's why I say just get started. Just get started.
Get started. Yeah. Awesome, dude. And now what marketing types of strategies have you found to be the most successful? Are you guys heavier with social? Are you guys heavier with which is like the tip in the scale on the side of the most effective for you guys?
Honestly, it's really like a holistic approach to everything. Like, and I think at this scale, it has to be. In the early days, it was about building brands that looked like brand ambassadors, partnerships with local events. How do we build and establish credibility was kind of phase one. Like there's no point of like paying to play if you want to build a brand for longevity if you don't have a solid base of credibility, because then they're not going to repeat customer rate. And you really want to start a flywheel where like, okay, after we start to acquire these customers, we need to know they're going to repurchase so we can reactivate them through social media or email. Then they purchase again and increase the lifetime value to then wash out that cost per acquisition, right? So to current day, it looks like, acquiring through paid advertising, performance marketing, Facebook, Google, and then just continuing to nurture and engage our base that we're growing over time through email. That's email flows, email campaigns, social media cross-platform. We're about to engage in starting to document our journey in these next steps. We'll have like a weekly YouTube series that we're going to start putting out, which will be interesting.
Oh, nice.
Doing stuff like this, really like high, like awareness, top of funnel, like get on podcasts and provide value from just the experience of building the business. You're kind of brand ambassador still. I mean, it's just an amalgamation of just a million different things that make our marketing strategy, but all equally important because they're meeting the customer where they are in their life cycle of Endur. So I think the lesson there for any early entrepreneurs would be like, focus on creating and establishing credibility through non-paid channels as much as possible, because like you want to be figuring out who is your real customer before you start going to pay and acquire people, because you don't want to get into this like cycle of paying, and you'll get some sales, but then you have to continue to pay to play because your repeat cycle's down, you haven't built your email list out, and then you fall into this cycle of like, oh, if Facebook changes their algorithm or all iOS 14 comes out, and you're just pretty hacked. You know what I mean? It's like see you later brand. So in the early days, I think if you can be patient, that's the most important thing, and sales will be a lot slower. Like, I sit here and say like, oh, we did like $1 million in 2 years. I can tell you there were multiple days per week in year 2 where we'd have like one online order, one or zero. And I would like make up a fake order so that the Canada Post guy coming to pick it up when I wasn't embarrassed, it was like, and so like, that's a real story. So like, and that's the story of like, there were multiple days like that. And that was a day where we did like nearly $1 million that year. So like, it's not all sunshines and rainbows. It's like, there's some days where it's like, oh, we made $0 today. It's like, you know what I mean? And that's tough. It's not always just like, this. It's like, and then eventually up. Right. So, I think that's important to recognize, is that like, it's not winning all the time.
Establishing that brand equity through organic. That there's some major value there. We got some crazy clips. We could keep this going. I do think it's probably, good to wrap up now. Probably we're already a little bit over, but thank you so much, Rob, for coming on, man. Do you have any specific call to action for the listeners? Endur.com?
EndurApparel.com. Check us out. Follow us on social media. Like, that's probably where you get join our email newsletter list too. It's not super spammy. It keeps you up to date with like when we drop new products. I mean, if anyone got value out of this, the best way you can pay me back is give a social media follow or buy a pair of socks. I mean, if you buy yourself a pair of socks, you're literally doing yourself a favor too, because they're just literally the best socks in the world. We have like tons of different designs that are literally designed to kind of express your personality. So for anyone that wants to go check us out, EndurApparel.com or @EndurApparel across all social. Find the perfect pair for yourself. And if you enjoyed this, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just Rob Fraser. You can find me. That's probably the best way to connect. And I try to make myself as accessible as possible for like questions in Messenger. Like, you can't get them all, but if you have something that called out to this thing and you want to dig a little deeper, then I try to make myself available.
Sweet. Sounds great. Rob, thank you again, man. All those links, guys, will be in the description. Please go check those out. Endur Apparel on Instagram, EndurApparel.com. Rob's LinkedIn will also be in the description. Rob, thank you again, man. This was awesome. There's tons of great clips from this.
My pleasure. Super fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Have a great day.
See you.